Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome to 2 Minutes to Review. It's Matt.
And it's Zach.
Our album review show, longest album review in under 2 minutes wins. We do mix of new albums, old albums. You click the picture. This is about as new as you get. One of the most highly anticipated albums of 2022. It's weird to say that, but
yeah, we're only in the first week, but whatever.
Yeah. And here you go. You have the brand new one from the Weeknd, Dawn FM.
He has done such an amazing job of evolving himself and his persona. It's just kept adding layers and more mystique and cinematic aspects to his music, to the point that he's just become one of the most interesting artists in modern music.
That's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, dare I say. To the point that when he announced, hey, in 7 days, I'm releasing a new album, it immediately became one of the most highly anticipated albums of the new year. And like we said, that's pretty astonishing considering that it's literally only been a week since this year started. And with this new album, it's really interesting because not only did he get some rather unique collaborators on this album, Lil Wayne and Tyler, the Creator. He's also worked with Max Martin. Oneohtrix, Point Never, produced the album. He's also got Quincy Jones doing a spoken word verse on this album, and Jim Carrey playing the role of a DJ, and kind of leads into what's also interesting about this album without going too much into our reviews. It's essentially a concept album. Basically, the way he's described it in the past interviews before, this is the radio station you'd essentially be listening to if you're in the midst of purgatory, as if you're in the midst of going off to death. And it's kind of reflective of how lately we've all been feeling a sense of purgatory, just waiting for the end, given the pandemic and everything. And he incorporates like a weird 80s inspired easy listening radio station vibe throughout the whole album. And Jim Carrey is that DJ voice. So that alone should make you go, I gotta listen to this album. And guess what? We did. And we're going to give our reviews. Hopefully I'll finally win one of these episodes.
I mean, it's a new year. You have a shot.
50-50, right? But before we get into our thoughts on the Weeknd's new album, I want to give a special shout out to Lucky 13 Beard Co.
They have been a sponsor for a long time. And if you haven't seen any of our posts, we do have our own beard oil now in collaboration with Lucky 13. It is the Lemmy, and it smells incredible. And if you know anything about Lemmy from Motorhead, well, he had 5 things that he loved, and we can only fit 4 of them into the beard oil because, well, you can't really make, rock and roll smell pleasant. But what we did make to manage smell good is whiskey, cola, tobacco, and leather. And it's not just because it's our beard oil. It's probably one of the best smelling beard oils I've ever smelt. And the way that Ed has made it, it feels really good. And your beard is going to feel so silky smooth when you put it in. So if you've ever been afraid to try beard oils, this is going to be your gateway into beard oils. And I guarantee you're going to love this stuff. So how do you get it? You go to Lucky13, the number, beardco.com. And then click on the product page. And if you want to get the Lemmy, great. If you want to try one of his other products on there, great as well, because we're giving you 10% off of your entire order. So use the code EFP10 at checkout. And I guarantee, like I said, you're going to get a discount. You're going to love the way you feel, love the way you smell. And I mean, it's 2022. I mean, maybe this is the year we all kind of get back to normal and you can go out without a mask on, maybe. I don't know. But be ready. Get the beard oil, throw it in, feel good, smell good. Use the code EFP10 at checkout. Lucky13, the number, beardco.com.
So, we're about to share our thoughts on the Weeknd's new album, Dawn FM. And Matt, you're going to be surprised, but I'm going to insist on going first. Boo.
Oh, shocker.
Yeah.
So you're going to keep it the same way as last year, even though you lost most of these last year. Mm-hmm. So instead of me showing you how it's done, you're just going to go ahead and do it again the old way.
Feeling pretty confident.
All right. 3.
Call it a
2,
sacrifice.
1. Don't call it a comeback. Go.
So if you like 80s dance pop songs with a hint of darkness and a sense of inner turmoil, this album quickly fulfills that within the first 2-3 songs. And I think the rest of the album, the best way to describe it, it's the best balance of avant-garde synth pop from the 80s and a serene modern flair that it's just with a tone both sonically and lyrically that really makes this a little bit more of a personal album than your typical modern dance album. And you got songs like How Do I Make You Love Me, Don't Break My Heart, and Sacrifice that just has some phenomenal synth work that the choruses are already really catchy, but the synth work makes it even more memorable. And I have to admit that upon additional listens, I wasn't as necessarily gravitated as I was upon the first listen. There's some redundancies, and it was kind of weird that the first half is more straightforward. I mean, if you were at an 80s disco in the midst of a psycho killer murder, just killing everyone, and then suddenly go into a more standard modern R&B album in the second half, it's a little weird. And even though I kind of loved how personal it was hearing Quincy Jones talking about his mother and how that impacted his love life with family and friends in A Tale by Quincy, it was a little out of nowhere where Sacrifice went straight into that. And there was just moments where the transitions were amazing, and then there was moments where the transitions just felt forced and just kind of sudden. But at the same time, there's a lot of elements of this album that should not work that really work. The fact that they have Jim Carrey playing a DJ essentially on this, it shouldn't work, and yet he provides such a great sense of what this album is supposed to capture at the beginning, middle, and end. And it's gloomy without making you feel gloomy, if that makes sense at all. We've talked about this in the beginning, that this is essentially a concept where he's trying to escape the claustrophobic reality that we're currently in, or the past 2 years have forced us in. And this album does a really great job at capturing that sense of hopelessness that we've kind of felt without making us feel hopeless, giving us a sense of hope. The whole album just gives me a sci-fi thriller vibe that in theory should make me run away from this album, but makes me more intrigued and more interested every time I listen to it.
All right, and we got a time and star rating out of 5.
Out of 5. It's interesting. I think the first time I listened to this album, if I was just basing it off that first listen, I would have given it pretty close to a 4-star review. There's a lot of great moments on this. That's just makes this a really unique, interesting album. The more I listen to it, though, the more I start nitpicking, the more I start seeing some flaws here and there, which is a little of a shame because there is some amazing production on it and his performance vocally is great. So I'm going to lean more towards a 3.5-star review. I think if you're a fan of The Weeknd, you're going to love it. If you're just discovering who he is, you might find this interesting. There's even elements that if you like 80s new wave, I actually think you'd really appreciate this, because there's definitely a sense of, as I mentioned in my review, this is not your standard dance pop album. There's definitely more thought and artistic creativity involved here that I think it's interesting that we just did an episode about David Bowie's best songs. I definitely got some hints of of David Bowie's avant-garde era music in this. So I'm going to say 3.5.
Okay, fair enough.
Matthew, I know it's going to be so hard to follow that phenomenal review.
I know, right?
That surely came in under 2 minutes. But are you ready?
I guess I'm ready. I still can't feel my face, but
don't take my breath. Don't take my breath. Are you ready, please?
That was a terrible pun.
Yeah, I'm ready. Not terrible. Not terrible. I could have tried to fit in blinding lights, but I didn't. All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
So for me being in radio for close to 15 years, I can honestly say that I really enjoyed the concept of the entire album. The radio-like broadcast from the top of the hour with Dawn FM, and then Out of Time kind of like at the bottom of the hour, and then coming back around with Phantom Regret by Jim. It really did kind of give a radio broadcast type feel, and I really did that. And even had a Time Life CD collection-esque commercial on Every Angel is Terrifying. So I really enjoyed that, and I haven't heard an album done like this, and it was probably done even better than what Queens of the Stone Age did on Songs for the Deaf, because I don't know if you ever heard that album, but if you haven't, they put an LA DJ on there called Kip Casper. But yeah, it was really done in like a radio broadcast style type way, and it was really cool too. But The Weeknd did it so much better, and you can hear so many different influences on this album, from like Depeche Mode, Duran Duran, modern English definitely on a song called Less Than Zero. And then I even got some like Daft Punk vibes in the middle of the album on Sacrifice. And then even on a track like A Tale by Quincy, I kind of feel like, they did a little bit of that Giorgio track that Daft Punk did on their album Random Access Memories. But I do have to say, like, when you get into like the vibes on like I Heard You Were Married, you still get the 80s vibes on there, but then Lil Wayne comes in and absolutely kills the vibe in a not good way with his brand new sounding in comparison to the rest of the album auto-tune signature. And I really think that it takes the listener back a little bit. But overall, this album from The Weeknd really kind of did surprise me, and I really did vibe with it in a way that I didn't think that I would.
Two things before I ask you for your star rating. I love that you picked up on the Daft Punk and the Depeche Mode, Duran Duran kind of influences, especially because I remember even thinking as soon as I heard Quincy, I was like, this reminds me of Random Access Memories too, of that kind of like vintage sound. And then suddenly there's like a huge influence speaking. And then, I actually forgot about Less Than Zero. Like that to me, I was like, oh my God, this kind of sounds like The Cure.
Oh,
like
I started to sing along with that. I was like, I'll stop the world and melt with you. And I was like, wow, this fits perfectly. But I mean, it's done in a way where you could tell that he was, influenced by that type of stuff, but he wasn't actually trying to go for it. But I just love that.
It wasn't that he was trying hard to capture it. It's just that that's what he was influenced by. And actually, it's funny. He, in an interview not that long ago, revealed that this, which is kind of funny because we did a best video game soundtracks not that long ago, and he talked about how Grand Theft Auto Vice City, that whole soundtrack was very influential on him and helping him discover a lot of the 80s music.
And it's
this album
funny you say
completely.
This. Okay, it's funny you say this because I didn't get Grand Theft Auto Vice City on this at all. I did get another game, and for other people who are really into video games like me, there's a game called Hotline Miami, and it is essentially when Grand Theft Auto was doing the complete overhead, top-down style of gameplay instead of the 3D over-the-shoulder gameplay. They took like this very dark, murderous vibe into a very 80s world in that game, and I felt like this is almost like a soundtrack. Like when you get into the more synthy parts where he's not really singing all that much, like if you took this music and dumped it in that game, it would easily be soundtrack of the year for video games.
You kind of just hit it really perfectly. That what I love about this album is that it's less of a album with songs and more of a soundtrack.
It is
more so in the beginning of the album. I think as you get toward the end, like you mentioned with like Lil Wayne and like slowly more modern elements come up, and you're kind of taken out of the world that he does a really cool job at creating in the beginning.
It's like the first half of the album. So once again, this is me being a radio nerd, starting at the top of the hour with Dawn FM, and then getting halfway around to Out of Time. Those songs between those tracks, those are the ones that build that world up perfectly.
Yeah, and then the rest, it's like it kind of gets a little uneven, and then it slowly picks back up toward the end. But yeah, there's definitely a moment after Out of Time, as you mentioned, that it kind of takes you out of that world. I know that this has been said before, but to me, the eeriness that is captured in Michael Jackson's Thriller, he captures so perfectly on this album to the point that it makes you go like, yeah, if Michael Jackson did more songs like that, I would totally listen to it.
I didn't hear that at all. I was so buried in the world of like thinking about the 80s and where this would have been, because there's no escape the 100% 80s vibes that are on here.
Oh, absolutely.
And I feel like if you were in like an 80s era deep disco, you would get this stuff in here, or possibly like people roller skating down like Miami Beach listening to this. You would get absolutely, in my opinion, you'd get those types of crowds and people listening to this, because this would have been so big in the 80s. And for him to take it to a place where it's not single heavy and single driven, I'll say that none of the singles that he has, which are Take My Breath, Sacrifice, and then I think he's gonna, from what I read somewhere, that he's gonna be releasing I Heard You're Married. I don't see how you could extract songs out of here and make them single worthy unless you do a better job of building in some of the outros on the other songs into
So
the intros.
it's funny you
But
say that, because I actually, one of the things I really appreciated. So he released "Take My Breath Away" a few weeks ago or months ago at this point, and I really liked that song on its own. I thought it was a really cool, catchy pop song, and I gained an even deeper appreciation for the song when I heard it in the album. The way that it transitions from, I'm trying to think of the song that is before it. Oh, "How Do I Make You Love Me?" The way he transitions from that to, was it that? Yeah.
yeah, track 3 is "How Do I
That
Make You
song,
Love Me," and track 4
yeah,
is "Take My
when he
Breath."
transferred that into "Take My Breath," it really did feel like I was in a universe that he created. It just, it was, I thought it was really cool, and gave me a deeper appreciation for that song, which I already liked a lot. One other thing before I ask you for your star ranking and then find out if you won a little fun competition, I also love that you called out the Queens of the Stone Age connection, or Songs of the Deaf. I don't know if I would say that this is better done execution wise. I would say
I
it's
think
different.
so.
Well, I would say it's different,
No, see,
because
and
to
I
me, Into the Stone Age, they did it for a more humorous purpose, for a more humorous way. Whereas here, it's injected into a broader concept from start to finish. I think it's kind of, you can compare it only because of what they did, but like in the way that they executed it, it was very different in my opinion.
see now from what I remember on Queens of the Stone Age, throughout the listening experience, like you get the opening track, you say that I don't look like $1,000,000, but I feel like $1,000,000 or something along that line, and I don't have the title in front of me, but they have the whole intro that they do with Kip Casper, who's a play on Kip Kelly, and he introduces the first song, and then kind of like the transitions are like subpar because it's just like somebody like retuning the dial. So
Well, that's why it's
I,
not part of a concept. It's really just more of a fun, like, additional layer to the album.
I
Whereas where Dawn FM was done with a fuller, broader concept.
and
I'm not.
that's right, and that's why I feel like it's done better, because I feel like this is somebody who took the time to understand what radio, and this is probably completely not his intent, but the radio programming in me says, you go for this long, then you take a break, you come back, you go for this long,
Yeah.
you take another break, then you come back again. And he really actually he did hit it, because when I was slowly getting out of radio, you would be down to like maybe 3 or 4 times that you talk in an hour. And he comes on with Dawn FM, then Out of Time at the bottom, and Phantom Regret is towards that top of the hour again.
Yeah.
So when you start to think about this from a radio perspective, and then the transitions and the way that they're tight, and it's very seamless. So I don't know how you listen to it, but on Spotify, the way that I listen to it, when you get the songs like just side by side and it's very seamless, that's what radio does. Radio gets them right up next to each other without overlapping, unless you make them overlap. Like there's certain songs that are meant to flow naturally into one another, and then if you have like 2 completely different bands, the outro of one song literally butts up against the intro of the next song, sometimes when they don't do like the sweepers in between the songs. That's kind of like Every Angel Is Terrifying on here, was that they have
Which I actually loved. It shouldn't
it was
like that, but they
oh
did
my
it
god,
was a fun job. They did a fun
I
like thing with that.
I laughed so hard when I heard it, because immediately my brain went to those Time Life CD commercials.
Which
And I was
also, that was actually done by Josh Safdie, who is the director of Uncut Gems. Which, little side fact, I forget if The Weeknd was supposed to be in the movie, maybe he didn't end up in the movie, or he was, but it ended up being a smaller role than initially planned. So it's funny that connection ended up back in it too. But something that you kind of touched on, for a day and age where so many artists are so focused on the singles, he did a great job in making us care about the full album experience, which
Yes.
I think for anyone in modern pop to do is a huge accomplishment as well.
And this is, I guess, because of my radio background, I really do feel like this is probably one of my favorite concept albums that I've listened to in recent memory, because a lot of it falls short, and anybody can very easily pick up that this is supposed to be a radio broadcast, whether or not you get all the little nuances and intricacies, or maybe things that I'm just building in my mind. But I feel like he took the time to understand and built it that way, and even took the time to put in something really creative like a commercial. So I think that this is spot on, exactly what you need to have a concept album look and feel like without, having to dive too deep into all like the backstory and understanding like, like nuances within the songs to understand the concept. Like you can understand that this is a radio broadcast, and anybody who's ever listened to radio will get that vibe.
So then before we go into the times, what's your score out of 5? What would you rank this?
I'm going to give this, and I've been toying with this, I wanted to say 3.5, but the more that I talk about it and the more that I think about it, and then when I hit Every Angel Is Terrifying, I'm going to have to give this a 4-star.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Just for somebody who took the time to get in a Time Life CD collection commercial, it was so perfect. And high like praise. he even put in a phone number and a fake price.
No, listen. There's just one. I mean, again, I kind of started getting nitpicky mainly because I was so blown away the first time I listened to it. But it's a very good album. Very, very good. 3.5 is still high praise for this album. But you know what, Matt? You and I know that what we actually think of it doesn't matter. None of it matters. It's the times, man. So
gotta get with the times, man.
Yeah, man. What's my time?
New year, same old Zach. 2 minutes, 40 seconds.
Oh, really? I thought I actually came in under.
Not even close.
Well, Matt, then congratulations. You came in at 1 minute and 50 seconds.
That is how you play this game.
Yeah. I'm Matt, and I gave him a perfect score.
Exactly.
I kept the point of the episode.
Had 2 minutes to review.
Well, did you agree with us? Did you disagree with us? What did you think of the Weeknd's new album, Dawn FM? Let us know on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Epic Footnote. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel to hear more podcasts just like this, where I promise, once in a while, I actually win with some of these reviews. Once in a while. Also, check out some cool videos that we produced on our YouTube channel. And thank you once again to Lucky 13 Beard Co. Again, go to lucky13beardco.com. Use the code EFP10 to get a 10% discount off not just some of his other great beard oils, but also our own collaboration where we got essentially the essence of Lemmy smell into a bottle for your beard. You're going to smell great. You're going to feel great. And even if you don't have a beard, I'm sure you know someone who has a beard, get them this beard oil. It's great. Also, thank you to Rootless Coffee Co. Based out of Flint, Michigan. They create coffee blends that break free from boring. It's just really creative blends. They collaborate with lots of artists, podcasters like us, and even wrestlers to create their own blends. Use the code EPICROAST at rootlesscoffee.com to get 15% off of your next purchase. You gotta try this coffee. It's delicious. And thank you all so much for listening to us two music nerds going on and on about the Weeknd's new album. Good way to start off the year, don't you think, Matt?
I do, and I figured out why you went over.
Why did I go over?
It was those damn blinding lights. See ya!
Damn it!